The Belgian Malinois is one of the most extraordinary working dogs on Earth. Yet behind its brilliance lies a moment every owner eventually faces that changes everything. It arrives quietly, without drama, and without the obvious signs people expect from a powerful breed. Most owners imagine the Malinois will reveal its intensity through loud behavior, but the truth is far more subtle. The first warning shows itself in silence, not action. A Malinois doesn't react first, it studies. Its mind works at a pace few humans ever notice until the consequences arrive. Centuries of selective breeding shaped the Malinois into a dog that analyzes intention before movement, danger before threat, and hesitation before command. This intelligence is breathtaking, but it also carries the hidden shift no one warns new owners about. The shift happens when the Malinois stops waiting for direction. Instead, it begins making decisions on its own. This is the moment that separates prepared handlers from overwhelmed households. It is the moment when leadership transfers, silently, instantly, and often permanently. Most owners don't notice the warning because it doesn't look like conflict. It looks like focus. The Malinois becomes still, not relaxed, but ready. That stillness is not peace. It is preparation. In professional environments, handlers are trained to detect that change in posture, breathing, and eye contact. In homes, the shift is mistaken for compliance or calmness. The Malinois steps forward internally long before it steps forward physically. It assumes responsibility because it senses a gap in leadership. To this dog, uncertainty is not harmless. Uncertainty is an invitation. A Malinois fills every vacuum it sees because its instincts were built for decisiveness. When the owner hesitates, the Malinois interprets that hesitation as a command to take control. This transfer of control is not disobedience, it is duty. The breed was engineered to act when others freeze. Once the Malinois begins making independent decisions, the entire relationship starts to change. The dog no longer checks in for guidance, it checks in for confirmation. When owners misunderstand this shift, they label the dog stubborn, reactive, or dominant. In truth, the dog believes it must lead because its human won't. The early warning appears in the way the Malinois watches a doorway, scans a sound, or positions its body between its owner and a perceived concern. It is subtle, but intentional. The dog is not being protective out of love alone. It is being protective out of responsibility. This responsibility grows heavier every day the owner remains inconsistent. Over time, the Malinois becomes hyper-vigilant inside the home, not because it wants to be, but because it feels it has no choice. People often confuse this vigilance with energy or drive, but at its core, it is stress. The Malinois is not a dog that relaxes without permission. It relaxes only when it believes someone else is holding the line. When owners fail to project calm structure, the Malinois becomes the structure. And that burden overwhelms even the most confident dogs. The moment the Malinois decides to act without the owner marks the beginning of a behavioral pattern that becomes increasingly difficult to reverse. It is not a single incident, it is a mindset forming. A Malinois that steps into leadership becomes emotionally heavier. Its reactions deepen, its sensitivity sharpens, and its perception of threat expands. This is why seemingly small things begin to trigger big responses. The dog isn't acting out, it's managing a world it shouldn't have to manage. Handlers who understand the breed intervene early, guiding the Malinois back into partnership. Owners who miss the signs only recognize the problem when it has already taken root. The most intense part of this warning is that the Malinois rarely signals distress with noise. Its distress appears as control. Control is its coping mechanism. Control is how the Malinois restores order when the human fails to provide it. This is why so many overwhelmed owners say the same thing. I didn't see it coming. They didn't see it because they were looking for the wrong signs. The Malinois does not escalate quickly or without thought. It escalates with precision. Every Malinois owner eventually experiences the moment when their dog stops asking and starts deciding. The question is whether the owner recognizes that moment soon enough. Some dogs recover from that shift with new structure. Others never fully return from it. The Malinois is not trying to dominate the household. It is trying to stabilize it. When owners unintentionally force the dog into that role, the Malinois carries the burden silently. And silence, with this breed, is never just silence. The warning no one talks about is not the bark, lunge, or reaction. It is the quiet moment when the Malinois decides that leadership has fallen to them. Once that belief forms, the dog acts with unwavering confidence, even when the owner disagrees. The conflict appears later, but the cause was planted long before. This shift is why Malinois behavior can confuse even experienced dog owners. Their intelligence is not just cognitive, it is emotional. The Malinois can read human hesitation with unsettling accuracy. It reacts not to what you do, but to what you feel. When your energy changes, the dog's role changes. When your leadership softens, the dog's responsibility hardens. And this is the moment no owner is prepared for, because it doesn't arrive with warning. It arrives with certainty. The Malinois believes it is doing the right thing. It believes it is protecting the home, the routine, and the balance. But without structure from the human, that protective instinct becomes pressure, and pressure becomes instability. This is the quiet truth behind many Malinois challenges. The dog is not broken, it is burdened. A burdened Malinois does not misbehave. It overperforms. It guards too much, watches too much, anticipates too much, and rests too little. It becomes a guardian in places where no guardian is needed. The shift continues until the dog is no longer responding to commands but predicting outcomes. The owner feels replaced without knowing when it happened. And yet, the warning was always silent. It was always in the stillness. The Malinois stands in that stillness waiting for one thing: clarity. Clarity restores balance faster than force ever could. The Malinois returns to balance the moment it feels guided instead of left to guess. Structure reassures this breed in a way affection never can, because clarity is the language its mind trusts most. When structure is missing, the dog leans deeper into self-directed behavior and begins managing situations long before the owner even notices them. This is why problems seem to suddenly appear when, in reality, they were slowly forming beneath the surface. The Malinois does not want to be in charge, but it will step into leadership every time it senses a vacuum. That shift is not a power move. It is a protective instinct shaped over generations of work. This instinct becomes overwhelming inside the home, where threats don't actually exist, but patterns still trigger the same internal response. Doorways, shadows, unfamiliar noises, and human tension all activate the dog's scanning behavior. What feels like overreacting to a human feels like responsibility to a Malinois. It is trying to solve problems it believes belong to it. The longer the dog holds that responsibility, the heavier the burden becomes. Emotional fatigue in the Malinois shows itself not as withdrawal, but as sharpened intensity. Intensity is the dog's attempt to restore order before chaos spreads. It is not misbehavior, but overfunctioning. Owners often miss the early signs because they misinterpret confidence for comfort. A Malinois can look powerful while feeling overwhelmed. The dog's eyes follow every movement with precision, calculating outcomes that humans overlook. It notices hesitation not as innocence, but as uncertainty. Uncertainty triggers the dog's internal command system to activate. The dog prepares to act long before it must. This readiness is admirable in military work, but destabilizing in everyday life. The dog becomes always on, unable to clock out of its imagined responsibilities. A Malinois that cannot rest becomes a Malinois that cannot think clearly. Its instincts take over where its judgment should be guided. This is why owners describe their dogs as too intense or too reactive without seeing the origin of the problem. Intensity is not the cause. Intensity is the symptom. The true cause is the moment the dog believed it needed to take control. That belief shapes every behavior that follows. For the Malinois, control is not about superiority but about safety. It feels unsafe when leadership is unclear, even in a perfectly safe home. The breed's mind is calibrated to notice everything out of place. When owners lack consistency, the entire world feels out of place. This creates a cycle where the Malinois tries harder to stabilize the environment, becoming more vigilant as the owner becomes more confused. Confusion deepens uncertainty, which deepens vigilance. Many owners only realize the shift has occurred when the dog begins correcting people or animals on its own. By then, the warning has turned into a pattern. But the first warning was gentle. It was the dog stepping forward half an inch. It was the dog's eyes tightening just slightly. It was the shift from following to forecasting. Forecasting is the Malinois' greatest gift and its greatest challenge. A dog that predicts can protect brilliantly, but it can also overwhelm itself with responsibility. This internal strain builds quietly until the dog's reactions seem disproportionate. Owners blame the outburst, not the months of silent pressure. But the Malinois remembers every shift, every lapse, every moment it believed it had to decide alone. When the dog reaches that point, it is not disobedient. It is exhausted. Exhaustion in this breed fuels impulsive decisions, not because the dog is reckless, but because it has been on high alert for too long. The Malinois trusts structure more deeply than affection. Affection warms the heart, but structure stabilizes the mind. When owners provide calm, consistent boundaries, the Malinois instantly softens. The dog's breathing slows, its eyes relax, and its instincts settle back into balance. The shift back to partnership is subtle, just like the original warning. You see it when the dog waits instead of anticipates. You see it when it looks to you before stepping forward. This look is not dependency. It is respect. It is the dog acknowledging that leadership has returned to the right place. The Malinois wants to follow someone worthy of its trust. It does not surrender leadership lightly, but when it does so completely. Restored leadership brings restored peace. The dog responds instantly to the change in atmosphere because clarity is its anchor. When clarity becomes consistent, the Malinois rewires the relationship from pressure to partnership. Its instinct to act blends with the owner's guidance, forming the bond that makes this breed legendary. At its core, the Malinois is not a difficult dog. It is a serious dog. It needs serious leadership to match its serious mind. Owners who understand the early warning signs prevent the dog from carrying unnecessary weight. They create a world where the Malinois can finally breathe. And when a Malinois breathes, it becomes the companion it was always meant to be. Powerful but peaceful, intense but balanced, loyal without burden, and brilliant without chaos. Because the truth is simple, the Malinois does not become overwhelming by nature. It becomes overwhelming when left alone in a role it was never meant to fill without guidance. That first warning, the silent one, is the dog asking a question. The question is whether you are ready to lead. And the Malinois waits for the answer in the stillness.